So after we complete what is left over from the previous week, then we will move to the next main topic, that is the artificial neural network. So I will take around 45 minutes or 1 hour to quickly cover what we had left from the previous week. I think it would be better to give a quick recap of what we had done in the previous day. And people have a tendency to forget about things when they are left for about a week. I believe you all have access to the YouTube video as well. So if you need a recap at any other time, you can just go there and watch the video. So we started with the Python. What is Python? Some basic information about Python, why Python is good and why Python is bad, certain aspects of Python. Then we mentioned that we are going to use Google Colabs as our programming environment, and we will be using Jupyter Notebook for writing the code. So this is the environment. So we started with a very simple program, saying print hello world, and we learn how to run the program, and we learn about there are something called cells, which can either be text or the code. We learn about coding. Python doesn't have multi-line coding, but you can have inline comments or single line comments using this hashtag. We also learn about the print function and the different data types. Because depending on the data type, your result can vary. There are certain conditions that need to be satisfied when you are writing a program. This grammar is known as the syntax. So each computer language has a set of syntax. Otherwise, you will get an error, right? So when it comes to variables, there are certain naming conventions. They are case sensitive, and you can't have spaces and like that. And we learn about a little bit of math. This is another important topic we cover in the previous day, functions. Just like variables allow you to use the same value in multiple places, functions allow you to reuse the same functionality at multiple places. So this is how a function is defined. And we learn in Python, instead of parentheses, we usually use indentation. So what is inside a function or a condition or a loop will be determined by the indentation. So we have a function, and this is the content inside the function. So we start with the def, give the function name, and what is inside is the function is indented. You can pass parameters into the function, and also you can return values from the function. If you want to return something, you will use the return command. So that way you can get a value out from the function. And here we have two input parameters and one output from this particular function. And this is how you call a function. You just give the name, and if there are any numbers, sorry, any input parameters, you need to include them. Then we move into storing data using lists and sets and things like that. A variable is a very good thing, but it can only store a single number or a string or a character. Sometimes you want to store a collection of values. In that case, you will need to use one of these things. In other languages, you might have matrices and arrays and things like that. In Python, list and arrays. In Python, list is similar to arrays in most of the other languages. So here's how you can create a list. Now tuples are read-only, while lists can be mutable. That means they can be edited during the runtime. These are ordered items. That means this order is preserved. But in sets, you don't have order. Now dictionary has a key value pair. We look at some of the examples. This is another way to create a list or a tuple. Important of sets is when you have some set operations, right? Sometimes you want to do a set operation without looking at the order or anything. Then you can define a set for this scenario. We also look at the dictionary. Although sets and dictionary, we just talk about it. We didn't go into much detail. We would rarely use them in our course. So this is how a dictionary is defined. So you have a value and a key and a value pair. So duplication of key is not permitted. And the values can be many different types. You can see here you have different types: strings, numbers, and even lists. Then we looked at the most important thing that we will be using throughout this lecture series, the lists. So you can think of lists as similar things to arrays in other languages. You can create them, edit them, delete them, do all those things. And they are allowed to have duplicate values. The items in a list is arranged in a particular order. The place of a particular item in a list is called the index. So in Python, you have a zero-based index. That means the first item, for example, in this list, the apple, will be referred as the zeroth item. Zeroth index, it will have index value of 0. So if I want to get the apple, I will have to say my list within square bracket 0. Right? And if you want to get a length of a list, you can use the len function. Here we have done several operations on the list. So if you want to assign something, we just select the place we want to assign it and then assign it. So this is acting just like a variable. So in this list, in this particular place, assign this value. So you are assigned that current to this particular place. You can assign multiple values as well. And if you want, you can insert it. Rather than replacing, you can insert a value in between. So all the values are preserved. In addition, you have a new value. So that's again possible using the insert keyword. It is also possible to do using this one as well, or you can use the insert keyword. Sometimes you want to append two lists. That means put two lists together to create a larger list. So you can do it just by doing a plus sign, or you can use the extend keyword. This is how you can remove certain items. If you know the item, for example, here we have the item called banana. So if you want to remove that one, you can say list name remove and the value. If there are duplicate values with the same scenario, only the first value will be removed. If you don't know the value, but you know the place, that means the index, you can use that as well. You can use delete followed by the list name, square brackets, and the index. If you want to clear all the items, you can use this command. It will remove the items, but it will keep the list. So the list will be there, but it will be empty. There we learn about another important concept, something again different in Python. So if we are trying to assign a list into another one, we are not actually making a copy. You are basically creating a new reference to the same item. So we have a list somewhere, and when you say assign, you are just pointing another new name to that same item. So if you make any changes to the original one, it will be reflected on all the other lists as well. For example, here we have the original one. So I am assigning another one called list one. I am assigning original to the list one, but in fact, I am just pointing list one to the same old list. So if I made a change in the original one, the same thing will be reflect on the list one. So that is something you have to keep in your mind, because as far as I know, other languages don't do it like this. When you assign something, it will actually create a copy. So how do you create a copy? If you want to copy something, then you can use the copy function. There's shallow copy and the deep copy. Shallow copy means you are copying only the first one level, top level. But if you want to duplicate everything, then you have to use the deep copy. Or you can actually use the slice function. That's again possible. I think I demonstrated it that day as well. So if you want to use the deep copy, you can use like this, copy.deep copy and the list name, or you can use the slice function. Then we learn about conditional branching. That means rather than going one after another, certain statements need to be skipped. In that case, we use conditional branching, or rather branching. If that skipping is done based on a condition, we call it as a conditional branch. So it is very common in all the other languages as well. So here's one of the common methods for doing conditional branch using if. There are other languages as well. There are other syntax as well. Right? For example, in the VB, you have something like switch. Right? So there can be other ways as well, but the most common way is to use a if condition. So if this condition is true, do this one. Again, note the indentation and the colon. So this print line is actually inside the if condition. If it is not indented, then it will be a separate statement and it will run. So it's not only the larger than that we can check, there are many other logical operations that we can check, like whether they are equal. Now remember, when you are checking the equal, you have to use two equal signs. If you just use a single equal sign, it will be considered as assignation. You can check not equal, less than, greater than, and so forth. And sometimes we want a little bit more complicated flow. It's not just a single if. Now with a single if, we can determine whether several set of statements get executed or not. Sometimes you want to check it for multiple conditions. If condition is true, do this. If condition is false, do that. So in that case, you have two parts. One thing that gets executed if the condition is true. Another thing that gets executed if the condition is false. So you can use if and else keywords for this one. Under the if, you can put whatever that need to be done if the condition is true. Under the else, you can put whatever that needs to be done if the condition is false. Now remember, only one of these will be get executed. To move in a little bit further, there are certain cases where we need to check more than one condition. There are two ways you can do it. You can use either a nested if, or in Python, you can use this else if function, else if syntax. So here we have used that one. We are first checking this condition, then else and if. These things together we call as else if, check this one. So this will be checked only if this one is false. So this one is false, then it goes to else and check this if condition. If this is true, then you do this one. You can have more than such statements, more than one such statement, right? You can have several one after another, checking for different conditions. But let's say at the very end, you want to do something if nothing is true. You are checking multiple things, but in the end, if nothing got executed, you want to do something else. Then you can put just the else. So this will happen if none of these above conditions are true. Right? So this is the else. Right? So this one is optional, this one is optional, right? It depends entirely on how you want to handle it. Another important thing is the logical operators. Again, you can do this using nested conditions, right? So rather than doing it like this, you can say if A is greater than B, then after that you can set another one if C is greater than A. That's again possible. So it entirely depends on your preference and how readable it is. If the thing you are checking, if you are checking multiple conditions and if they are related, it is preferred to have them in a like this, in a single statement. Right? That way person can easily understand. If they are not related, not closely related, two different things you want to check, then having a nested if can be easy to read. Right? So if you have more than one condition to check, you can use logical operators as well. So here I am using the AND logical operator. You also have the OR logical operator like that. For example, let's say you want to check whether this circle is red or green. Then rather than having a nested if condition, you can say if the circle is red or circle is green, then do this. That's easy to understand. But in certain times, you have very complicated scenario where you have to check it in separate places. Let's say you want to check whether it's a, you want to check the color of an item and also the type of that item, right? So the first condition might be like checking if the item is a mug. Then if that item is red, do this. Otherwise, if the item is a let's say a saucer, and if the color is like this, do that. So like that, in that case, you might want to use a nested one. You can also use the logical one, there's no problem. But in the readability sense, I think it would be better to use a nested one. So this is the nested condition that I mentioned. Sometimes you can use a nested condition like this. That day we did this exercise, and I think that was the last thing we did. Right. So today we will learn about the random numbers, and then we will look at the loop structures. Is there anything you want to ask before we start today's session? Anything you want to learn about the previous day? Okay. Then we will start with a new one. So just like in the previous day, go to Google Colabs and create a new Jupyter Notepad, Jupyter Notebook. Call hello world 2. Now, when it comes to random numbers, you have to know several things. One thing is, unless you have a very specific hardware, random numbers created inside a computer is known as pseudo random numbers. That means they are not actual random numbers, but you can get away using them. They most of the time feel like random numbers. Right? How do you generate a random number? To generate a random number, first you need to import something. You need to import a random library. After that, let's say I want to create a single random number like this. I can use something like this. Random, random, and I can print this one. And you will notice I will get a random number between 0 and 1. Okay, so if I want to, if you run it again, you will get a different number. So if I want to get some random number between 0 and 1, a real number, I can use this method. Sometimes you want to get a random integer. Then we can use random int. And we can give some range. Sorry, it should be rand int. Okay, I'm getting a 7, 5, oh. Okay, this is how you get a random integer. But what if I want to have a real number, but not in the range of 0 to 1, but something larger? Let's say somewhere between 10 and 20. Then what can I do? One thing you can do is you can create a random number between 0 and 1 and multiply it by that value. So then you can get a larger range and add some constant. That's one way of creating a random number in a given range. But there's a built-in method as well. So we can use it like this. And assuming we want a uniform distribution, that means the probability of getting a number is equal. There are no biases, right? Let's say 10 to 20. Okay, now we are getting a random number, a real number, randomly generated between 10 and 20. This is important. This random number generation is important for today's lecture and also for upcoming ones, especially in the one about Monte Carlo. You will need to know about this random number generation. Any questions? Were you able to do this one? Any problems you are having? Friends, I need your feedback.
Okay, sir.
Okay, okay. One person said okay. What about others?
All good, sir, up to now.
Okay. Right. Now I am going to tell you about another application of random numbers. Oh, this random library, right? Sometimes you want to shuffle items in your list, right? That is common. Sometimes you want to shuffle your items in the list. There are multiple ways of doing it, but one easy way to do it is using the shuffle function in the random library. Let me show you how it is done. Let's say fruits, and I'm going to create a list. So you can follow with me. You can put whatever the fruit you like. Now I'm going to say apple, banana, and what else? Tell me another fruit. It's a very hard computational problem. Tell me another fruit.
Orange.
Orange. Okay. Another person has a chance. What else? Someone else?
Mango.
Mango. Okay, we have a mango lady. Okay. Right. Now, if we just print it like this, now remember, I mentioned lists are ordered. That means their order is not going to change. I can run it multiple times, but I will get the same order. Let's say I'm going to randomly shuffle it. So I can give each of you a different fruit, randomly selected fruit. So what I can do is, I can use this particular command. Random dot shuffle, and then I can give the list fruits. Let's call it my fruit. Let's just print it. Not hard, right? You know how to do it. What happened there? Right. So what happens now is, when you run it, you will notice now the order gets changed every time. For example, in the original one, we had apple as the first one, but now when we run it, we get mango as the first one. Mango, apple, banana, and orange. Right? So we can use the shuffle function to shuffle the items in a list. What if I want to just randomly select an item from the list? Not to shuffle everything, I want to select something. Well, of course, you can shuffle it and get the first item out. That's again possible. Another way you can do it is, you can say random choice. Then you can give the list fruits. Okay, so now I'm getting, it is always coming as banana. Okay, now it's changed, apple. So if I want to change some item randomly, select some item randomly from a list, I can use the random choice command. Is it clear? Right. I want you to try these three commands: how to generate a random number, how to shuffle the list, and how to randomly select an item from the list. Can you quickly do it and put it in the chat when you finish it? Maybe you can say you have completed it or okay or something. Then we can move to the next topic.
Sir,
Yes.
what's the difference caused by using this choice and choices? Like there's like two options available. So what happens when we use these choices?
Try it and see. In the choice
Yeah,
you get
I
only one.
did, but it's the same things appears like it's
No, for the choices you have to supply another parameter.
yeah, as wave they are asking for, but
Okay, we will try that one example as well.
okay.
Got it?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. So there are other choices, few choices as well. So this one is weights. That means sometimes you want to have certain items have a larger probability. Right? Let's say you are running a raffle, right? The winner get one of these fruits. Now, let's say banana is the cheapest one. So you want to have a higher probability of someone winning a banana. Right? Then you can assign the weights as well. It says weight, assign. Then you can assign certain probabilities. Let's say this is 1, 1, 1, 10. Two, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Choices got an unexpected keyword. There must be a spelling mistake. WEI weights. Yeah, weights. So now you will notice most of the time I am getting a banana because that's weight is high. It's about 10 times larger. But if I put something like 1, everyone has an equal probability of getting selected. See? So by using them, you can decide how many items to be selected. Also, whether they have the equal probability or different probabilities. What about other students? Have you finished? Let's say we have Lahiru. Lahiru, you were good. Karnwal.
Still I'm doing, sir.
Still you're doing. Come on. ලල්ලකෝ දෙයක් නෑ මේ ටික බලන්න ලිවීමක් වගේ කන්න තියෙන්නේ. What about someone else? Let's ask Isha. It's Isha, right? Okay. What about you?
Okay, sir. No.
Okay, good, good. Nivant, what about you?
Just finished, sir.
Just finished. Good, good. Right. Let's move to the other one. Otherwise, we might not have enough time, right? Okay. So I'm going to the PowerPoint. So the code I mentioned earlier is in the PowerPoint. So you can try it at home as well. Now we are moving to the loop structures. This would be the last main topic in introduction to Python. Sometimes you want to do the same thing multiple times. Repeat something. Rather than copy pasting it, there's a much more elegant and efficient way to do it. That is known as a loop structure. Now, again, there are differences between Python and other language syntaxes. But general idea is loop structures will allow you to repeat something. There are two different types of loop structures, while loops and the for loops. While loops allow you to repeat something until a condition is satisfied. For loop usually have a predefined number of repetition times. You can do it 10 times, 20 times, or number of items in a list, number of times for each item in the list. So at the beginning of the loop, you have an idea how many times you are going to repeat. But for a while loop, you don't have such a scenario. You might have to repeat it forever until the condition is satisfied. We'll start with this one. We'll start with the while loop. So this is the syntax for the while loop. This I here, we call it as the incrementing variable, because that is the variable that we keep track of how many times we have repeated something. Right? So the syntax is like this. You have incrementing variable, then you have a condition. While this condition is satisfied, do whatever inside the while loop. Now you will notice you have this particular indentation. That means these are the things inside the while loop. So while this is satisfied, do these things. Now remember, at the very end, you need to have this one. You can write it like this, or you can say I is equal to I plus 1. What you are basically doing is, at the end of the loop, you are incrementing it by 1. So the next time you come here, I is actually 2. After finishing it, I is 3. Like that, it goes incrementing until this condition is false. When I is equal to 6, this condition becomes false and you will skip. So that is how the while loop works. Let's quickly code it and see. Right. So in your notebook, see whether you can repeat this particular loop. When you run it, you should get something like this. You can see it's repeated. Completed. Done. Finish. Ivarada.
Yes, sir.
Good. Niman, what about you?
Okay, sir.
Good. Lakman.
Okay, sir.
Hiruni. Done. Right.
Done, sir.
Good. Because now I'm going to give you an exercise. Okay. So this will help you understand some of the things we have learned so far. Here's what you have to do. Create a random number. There's a small mistake. It should be a create a random integer. Let me modify it a little bit. So that it will be easy for you to quickly go there and do it. And between 10 and 20. Okay. I'm making it easy. If it is an odd number, add 1. Okay, now you have created a random number. If your number is odd one, you know what's odd and even, right? You need to add 1. If it is an even number, you need to divide it by 2. Right? So after that, you have another number. You might have add 1 if it was an odd one. If it was an even one, you get a new number by dividing it by 2. Okay, now you have a new number. Now you do the same thing for the new number. If the new number is an odd number, you add 1. If your new number is a even one, you divide it by 2. You repeat it until it is less than or equal to let's say 1 is too small, 5. Right? And you need to print the answer in each step. Okay, you need to print the answer in each step. There's a small help I can provide you. That is how are you going to determine whether a number is odd or even, right? So the one way to do that is using the remainder. Remainder means you divide it by something and you get the remaining amount, something like a modulus. So if I do something like this, let's say 8 mod 3, that gives me 2. That means if you divide 8 by 3, you are left with 2, right? Because you get 6 and 8 is larger than that one. So if I say something like 9, remainder should be 0 because it is exactly divisible. If I say something like 10 modulus, which one? 5, remainder is 0 because it's exactly divisible. So you can use this particular property to check whether a number is odd or even. Right. So I'll give you 5 minutes. Quickly do this exercise and put the answer in the chat, or you can share the link with me, whatever you prefer. Right? Quickly do it. This should help you cover up, I think, almost all the things you have done up to this point. Anything you want to ask? Anything clarifications you need? No need, right? Okay, go ahead and do it. Any updates?
Sir,
Yes.
could you please explain what's meant by this repeat until the number is less than or equal to 5?
So when you follow this process of adding 1 and dividing by 2, gradually your number will reduce. Let's say you start at 20, then you divide it by 2, you get now 20 is a even number. So what you should do is you divide it by 2, then your new number becomes 10. 10 is again an even number. So you again divide it by 2, you end up with a 5. 5 is an odd number. You add 1, that becomes 6. It's an even number, divide by 2, it becomes 3. Now 3 is less than 5. So you can stop there. So gradually what's going to happen is whatever the number you start, it will slowly become smaller and smaller. So when your number is less than or equal to 5, you can stop this repeating process. Until you get a number less than or equal to 5, you have to either add 1 or divide it by 2, depending on the whether it's a odd or a even number.
Okay.
So when I say repeat, I'm actually meaning the previous 2 steps, okay, not starting from creating a random number. So I think I should have make it a little bit more clear. Let's steps 2, 3. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, sir. I sent the answer, but I'm not very much clear about the answer.
Mhm.
It's working, sir, but the final answer is not getting less than 5.
Okay. In your case, you are checking while y is less than 5. Did you check that one? Okay, that is the place you are having the error.
Sir, what I did was like I assigned the random variable to x, and using that if function, I did that odd and even part. So that answer, I assigned it again to another variable.
No, that part is correct. The only thing is when you say while y is less than or equal to 5,
Yes.
the loop will work. You have put it in the other way around. The while y is, so you are repeating the loop while that condition is satisfied. So you are repeating the loop if y is smaller than 5.
So I had to put it in the other way. Why?
Anyone else finished? Buddhika, what about you? Karala ivaraddu.
I'll send the answer, sir. So it's in the chat.
Yeah, I saw it. Okay. So do you get your expected answer? You
Sorry?
can- do you get the answer?
Yeah, sir. I got like 4
You can
rows.
self-check it, ne?
Yeah. I
You
checked.
don't, yeah. So those who wrote the code, you don't actually have to wait until I give you whether it's correct or not. You know how the answer should be, right? By looking at the printed numbers, you should be able to tell. This one is okay, Buddhi. How about others? Sandali. Okay, your name is the last one in the chat. Did you manage to do it? Are there any problems that you are facing at the moment?
So in this one, I just made an assumption like that. As what I understood, when we are having these odd numbers, if we add just one, I made this like so මම අර ඒ කියන්නේ අර add one එක අපේ අර random number එකට එකක් එකතු වෙන විදිහට ඒකටද කරන්න ඕන නැත්නම්
මුලින්ම රැන්ඩම් නම්බර් එකකින් පටන් ගන්නවා. ඊට පස්සේ දෙකෙන් බෙදෙන එක හරි එකතු කරන එක හරි ඒ රැන්ඩම් නම්බර් එකට කරනවා. ඒතර අලුත් උත්තරයක් එනවනේ. අලුත් ඉලක්කම. ඒ ඉලක්කමට තමයි ඊළඟ ස්ටෙප් එක වෙන්නේ. ඒක පහට අඩු නම් එතනින් නවතිනවා. ඒක පහට වැඩි නම් ආයි පාරක් එක්කෝ එකක් එකතු වෙනවා. නැත්නම් දෙකෙන් බෙදෙනවා. ඒතර රැන්ඩම් නම්බර් එක එකපාරයි ජෙනරේට් වෙන්නේ. ඊට පස්සේ නම්බර්ස් ටික ජෙනරේට් වෙන්නේ අර එකතු කිරීමෙන් හෝ බෙදීමෙන් තමයි. Sandari, you have a small issue in your code. You have to repeat steps 2 and 3, not just printing.
ඉතින් සර් දැන් ඒ ස්ටෙප් 2 and 3 එකේදී දැන් 1 plus අපි අර divide කරලා එන එක odd එකකදී 1 විතරක් වුණාම එකක් එකතු වුණාම එතකොට ඒක කොහොමත් 2 වෙන හින්දා nah sir, let me check this again. Sorry.
මම හිතනවා වැඩි එකයි වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. Lakmal, what's happening?
I wrote the code, but I can't see the print. I can't see the result. I'm
Why?
not getting any error, but I can't see
Did
the
you put a
result.
print statement?
Yeah, I could.
Okay. Can you put the code into the chat? Maybe I can figure out why you can't see anything. Maybe your loop is not working or something like that. Your while loop, you are starting with x is less than 5. So your loop will run only if the x is less than 5. But you are starting at a number larger than 5, right? The initial
Right.
value for the x is at least 10. Then in the loop, you are checking whether it is less than 5, and if it is less than 5, you are doing everything. So you won't get anything because your loop is not working. Remember, while loop works until the condition is satisfied. Levante, how about you?
Still trying, sir.
Still trying. Where are you at the moment? Is there any place you want me to explain?
No, I included everything inside the while loop. So I'm taking the while loop out and making it work separately.
Okay. If you put random number generation also inside the while loop, every time a new random number will be generated. So random number should only be generated once.
Okay.
Christina, input random. I think that one should work. Let's copy paste and see. Isha has also submitted an answer. Num random int. Okay. While Okay, Isha, your code is okay. I'm not sure why you're putting it as random number, but after the first point, it will not be a random number. It will be basically the answer from the previous one. But it's just some explanation you have wrote, so it's no problem. And everyone, if you are doing it in a new notebook, make sure to import it. Now I know we imported it at the very beginning, so there's no need to import it again. But if you're trying it at home with the new notebook, don't forget to import the random command. Right. So I think I'll allow others to do it as homework in their free time. We need to move forward. Right. So this is the next loop structure that we are going to learn. It is the for loop. Now in the while loop, you have a you have a condition. So until that so while that condition is satisfied, until that condition is there, the loop is going to continue. In a for loop, it basically allows you to do something for a fixed amount of time. So it can be a set of numbers, that means from 1 to 10 or 10 to 20 or something like that, or it can be a list. So for each item you are doing something, right? So if you look at this first one, it's repeating same thing 6 times, right? So how we are going to do it? You may not know about this keyword. I hope I had told you this range keyword gives you a set of numbers like this, right? If you say print, okay, we'll put a list command as well. Otherwise, you will not be able to see it. It will just print it as range. So when you say range 6, it's basically doing is it's creating a set of numbers like this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? You can have other things as well. Let's say 3 to 6. You can see starting from 3 and goes up to 6. You can say 3 to 10. Well, that one, I think it's the colon. Right? So the range basically creates a set of numbers. So when we say for x in range 6, print you can see I'm getting 6 hellos. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? So that's what this one is doing. Or you can do a print x as well, then you will see 0 to 5. So if you want to do it for a fixed number of times, you can use this particular function. Right? And if you want to have, okay, I remember now the range. Other way to do it is you have to give the difference at the last argument, not at the beginning. List range, let's say 10 to 40, but at the distance of 2. Okay. Starting point, ending point, difference between consecutive terms, right? So this one should be at the end. In the MATLAB, it's in the middle. In the Python, it's at the end. Okay. So if you want, you can do something like this in here as well. So you will have a set of numbers in this kind of way. So if you want to repeat something for a fixed number of times, this is the easiest way to do it. So if you want to iterate through not a fixed number of things, let's say you want to iterate through a set of items in a list. I mentioned earlier that you can iterate through list as well. So we'll use the fruits. Okay, fruits you have 4. So we can write a loop like this. For x in fruits, print x. Don't want this one. So you can see for each item in this list, I'm printing it. So it's not just printing. If you want to do something, you can do it. For example, if you have a set of marks of students, you can run through it like for mark for X in marks, and inside it for each mark you can do something. If the mark is lesser than 20, print fair, something like that is possible, right? So that is how iterating through a loop is conducted. Since it's almost 2:20, I will move a little bit fast. So you can try certain exercise at home. So I'm going to show you about this one. So try to do it as a homework, right? So a set of marks are provided. Print their grades based on the previous grade sheet, right? Earlier grade sheet means here we had something like this one. So the same scenario, you have to go through each mark and print the grade relevant to that person. So you can try it at home. Here are the last two slides. When you are having loop structures, there are two other things that are important: break and continuous statements. Sometimes you want to stop a loop based on a certain condition, right? So break and continuous statements allow you a way to do it, but they are working in a slightly different way, right? So in the break statement, if you have a break statement, that means the loop is immediately exit. It will no longer iterate. So in this case, if you run this particular scenario, soon as the banana word is detected, the loop will exit. After that, loop will not continue. Continuous statement. So here I'm using the example as a continuous statement. If you use the continuous statement here instead of break, what's going to happen is it's going to skip that particular iteration. Okay. Now loop structure means it's repeating something multiple times, and each time it repeats through that set of instructions known as iteration. So in this case, this will go through 3 iterations. First time X is apple, second time it's banana, third time it's cherry. So if you just had a for loop, it will go through 3 times. If you have break statements, what's going to happen is it will go through the apple, then it comes to banana, and immediately it will this break statement will be executed. Imagine this is a break statement. Then immediately it will exit the loop. After that, loop doesn't work. But if you have a continue statement, what's going to happen is apple is going to be checked and printed, banana is going to be there, and you have continuous statement. That means rest of the loop will skip. Rest of the iteration will be skipped. So after this point, it will immediately move to the next item in the cherry. Anything below this one will not be printed. Anything below this will not be executed. So by using a continuous statement, you can basically skip what's happening, right? So let's say this is the loop structure. So usually what's happening is after this point, it will come back here. And whatever your iteration will be incremented. So if you had a break statement, let's say somewhere you have a break statement. So when you go through this one, some point you hit the break statement, then it immediately exit the loop and move outside of this loop. Whatever after this statement will work. So this is the loop. At the break, it will exit the full loop. But what will happen if it's not a break statement, if it is a continue? Then it will go up like this. And the moment it hits continue, whatever after this one will be neglected, it will move immediately back to the top and will continue from the next item in the list. So that is the difference between the break and the continue. In the break one, it will exit the whole loop and move to the whatever the next statement. In the continue case, it will move up back into the next iterative item. Right.
Excuse me, sir. That means with continue, if we put that banana, the banana will not print, then they will print cherry. Or again, it's going to apple.
Okay, let's try it and see.
Okay. Sir.
So let's say fruits. Now we have apple, orange, mango, and banana. Better to type it again. So you have everything in your head. Okay. Fruits, these are the fruits. And we are going to check something. Let's say if X is, we'll take something in the middle, orange. And to make it more easy to understand, we'll put it like this: print I am at top. So continue. After this condition, I can say so I'm printing three things. So it will easy for you to understand. First, I'm going to print whatever the fruit it is. Then I'm going to print this one. Then it will go to the continue function. Then you will see what this one. Right? If you write it like this, apple, I am at top, I am at bottom. Okay, it's there. Banana is there. And you comes to orange part. Okay, orange one. What's going to happen? Orange, I am at top. That means this one is printed. This one is printed. But this one is no longer there. You can see after the I am at top, it directly goes to the mango. It doesn't have this I am at bottom part. So what's going to happen is in the continue one, you goes like this, goes like this. After this one, continue function happens. So instead of executing anything after this continue line, it's going to immediately go to the next iteration of the for. So next means it will go back immediately to the mango one. So after that, it continues as usual. After that, it flows like usual. So whenever it hit a continue, it will skip rest of the code and go immediately back to the top at this point. So this is how the continue works. But if I put something like a break, you can see after hitting the orange, nothing is happening. After hitting the orange, why it is printing I am at top? All right. Orange, I am at top. Then you have the break, and after that, nothing is printed. That means after hitting the break point, this loop is exit. Or you can say something like this: print outside the loop. So you can see after this point, after the orange, it immediately jumps to the outside of the loop. If you don't have it, and if you had something like continue, you have the mango and everything. Only after finishing this loop, you go back to the outside of the loop. And if you don't have anything at all, then the normal looping process happens and everything is printed. Another thing in the Python is if you put a if condition, you have to put something. I just put pass. Now it's a normal process. Is it okay? Is it clear? Okay, I hope it is clear. If not, please let me know. So the last one is the nested loops. Sometimes you want to have multiple loops, right? So you can have something inside another loop. So here you have the first for loop, inside it you have another loop. So this loop is going to execute multiple times. After it finishes those iteration, it will move up, and the larger loop, the outer loop, will execute once. So this will be repeated multiple times. After doing it, it goes here and comes again and repeated like this. So it's known as the nested loops. With that, we come to the conclusion of this particular session, particular topic, not the lecture. We have another topic to cover. Anything you want to ask?